Welcome to the Fierce and Fit Mentor Podcast. I'm your host, Clarice Yao, a holistic health coach dedicated to helping women over 40 achieve their fittest, fiercest selves. Each week, we'll dive deep into the unique challenges of menopause, including belly fat, weight gain, muscle building, hormonal imbalances, and more. These episodes are recorded live from my free Facebook group, Fierce Women Sculpting Powerful Bodies and Champion Mindsets. Be sure to check the link in the show notes to join our incredible community and access free content, challenges, and resources designed just for you. So this live is understanding your changing gut health through the years, 40s, 50s, and 60s, and how to optimize your energy, weight, mood, hormones, all of that. So the way I'm going to break it down, I'm going to start with some fun facts about gut health, because I think gut is like crazy interesting. And then we're going to talk a little bit about what changes in your gut, as well as then what happens at each decade that you can potentially do to help yourself improve in the gut area. Okay, so as most of you may know, the immune system, 70% of your immune system actually starts in your gut. Okay, so your gut is crazy amazing. I'm going to get into some crazy facts about this. So many of the processes in your body starts in the gut. So your digestion, your energy, your mood, your hormones, all actually starts from your gut. So learning to take care of your gut health is super important. Okay, so a couple fun facts about your gut. So your DNA and in your human body accounts for about 20 to 25,000 genes. So I don't know if you know this. Now, the funny thing is that plants like rice plants, like wheat, actually has more DNA genetic coding than the human body. So plants have about 30, the rice plants and some of these other ones have 37,000 to 50,000 genes. And as humans, we only have about 20 to 25,000 genes. So this is crazy that the plants can outweigh us in genetic coding. So what makes us different? Why are humans so crazy in the sense of like we're at the top of the food chain when we have less genetic coding than actually plants, right? So this is actually what's really cool is that we're not superior in our genetics in the number of genes that we carry as humans. We are superior in actually the amount of microbiomes that we carry that carry the genetic coding. So with the microbiomes in our system and in our gut, this actually accounts for over 3 million genes because of the microbiomes, the bacteria, the fungi, all of those things that sit in our bodies and particularly in our gut. So actually what makes us superior is actually the microbiome in our system. Why this is super cool that you might find is that that is why taking care of your microbiome is so important, because that is actually what connects most of our body's processes, right? So, and a little bit of fun fact too is, so we're 50% human cells and then 50% microbial cells. So we're like half and half, meaning we're not all human cells. Actually, we're dominated a lot by those microbiomes as well. So this is really important, again, because if you can understand the importance of understanding how to take care of your gut, this is going to change everything in your hormones, in your life, in your weight loss process, in your muscle building process. This is like the key. And this is why the gut is also called the second brain. How many of you have heard about the second brain? So your gut actually connects to your brain through the vagus nerve. So this process, the vagus nerve connection is really important for there to be signals going back and forth. But actually, if you sever the vagus nerve, your entire gut system can operate independently from your brain. So it is a second brain because it can operate secondly. It's called the enteric system, and it will function on its own, which is crazy. It's like almost like a separate organism. So this is super important because, again, if the better you can control signals to your gut to your body, what you intake, what you're doing for the gut, the better that your body will operate, right? And I want you to think of, your gut microbiome or your gut bugs to be like the DJ of a dance party. Of course, Clarice is a dancer, is the DJ of a dance party. So all the gut bugs and all the microbiomes that are in there, they help decide whether your party in your body, will have a happy dance, like serotonin and sort of these happy hormones are going to get excreted, or it's going to have stressful hormones because it's playing bad music through your body. So your gut bugs actually determine a lot of your mood and how you feel. So 90 to 95% of your serotonin is produced in your gut. And also your dopamine and other brain chemicals, a large part is produced in your gut, not in your brain. So this is kind of the start of kind of helping you understand why the second brain, your gut health, is so important. And the entire microbiome system in your gut is going to be like the control center for your body, for keeping your health in check, right? So we're going to dive right into it. Now, I've done a lot of talks on microbiome and gut health. The science behind these things is pretty intense. There's like 6 or 7 studies that you can go through, like the human microbiome projects and things like that. This can get incredibly complicated. So I'm going to try to break it down more simply and into some actionable steps that you can do. So the first thing is in your microbiome, as you age, one of the main things that happen, especially as women, is your estrogen microbiome crosstalk. So what do I mean by this? As you age, your estrogen and your microbiome connect to each other, okay? When your estrogen drops, your microbiome, which connects to the way they process estrogen in your gut, so they're called estroblome, it changes. So when this happens, a lot of things change, like your bile acids will change, your metabolism will change, enzymatic activity will change. So to help you understand this, when your liver is trying to get rid of estrogen, specifically for menopausal women, perimenopause, menopause, postmenopause, your liver will actually tag excess estrogen and will get it through the bile to try to get rid of it in your stomach, okay? But if your gut has a process called beta glucuronidase, it tries to uncouple some of these estrogen molecules. A little bit of this is okay if some of it goes back into your system. But if your enzymatic activity is not proper, it will recycle a lot of this back into your system, which I've talked about before. And too much beta glucuronidase, this is that enzymatic activity, will increase the circulating estrogen metabolites in there, okay? And this will alter your bile recycling. It will cause increased inflammation in your system. So when your estrogen level falls, there's a big shift that happens in your gut and the bacteria. And this is why we have to really protect this kind of what we call the estrogen crosstalk, microbiome crosstalk, because when your estrogen falls, it really changes the bacterial situation of these enzymatic activities I'm talking about, right? So when you have the alteration of these bacteria coming from altered estrogen, all of this stuff, it will alter a number of things, like I said. So digestion. So if your enzyme activity is not proper from that drop in estrogen, you will have increased bloating. You will have altered bowel activities. So either constipation or, going too often. So it's not going to be the regular activity. So if you have irregular bile acid metabolism, this is really going to affect that. The second thing is if you have, again, that altered enzymatic activity that I talked about, your weight metabolism is going to shift because of the different signals. Now, there are different hormone signals in your body, like ghrelin and leptin, that actually is your hunger signals and fullness signals. There is something called the GLP-1 and PPY. These hormones specifically, they are excreted after you eat. Okay, so this is extremely important because after you eat, what you bring into your body will affect a certain signal in your body. So if you don't eat the proper coupling of foods, which I talk a lot about food combinations, this will affect the way it's going to signal, like the hunger signals. It will signal proper hormone signals. So when I talk about the proper coupling of foods, an example would be, especially as you age, eating more protein and fiber is really crucial, because your coupling of that particular kind of combination actually supports GLP activity and PPY. So these hormones, they get boosted if you have the right combination of foods together. So this is why I often say the way you combine your food will affect how your microbiome actually receives that information. So if you want better metabolism, better activity in your gut, you want to make sure that the combination of food is proper. In particular, like I said, really focusing on, especially as a woman, to really focus on that protein and fiber kind of combination. Okay, so what else is affected? So right now the topic is your microbiome changes as you age, right? So your digestion is affected from the drop in estrogen. Your weight, your metabolism is affected with the drop in estrogen. So your hormones with the drop of estrogen, number 3, it will affect your mood, your skin, your bone, and alter kind of that microbial activity. So your hormones and the cascading effect of estrogen dropping and all the other things that follow will affect everything else, which I'll talk about: the gut, skin, gut, brain, even gut muscle connection. Okay, so your estrogen dropping creates a lot of shifts in your body. And one more thing here, so there's a lot of reasons why your body's going to change: digestion, weight, hormones, and then inflammation. Okay, so your higher glucuronidase activity, like I say, when that glucuronidase activity in your stomach is uncoupling some of the old estrogen, okay, pushing it back into the bloodstream, you're going to have more endotoxins come back into your system. And this estrogen metabolite circulating is going to add to what we call inflammaging in your body, inflammation and aging at the same time. Okay, so when you have higher beta glucuronidase activity, this is going to create more toxins in your body. So this is me trying to help you understand that as you age, how many of you have felt like, I might have lower energy, I might be gaining weight faster, I might feel sluggish, or I might have slower metabolism? Put below which one you feel like sometimes you experience. This is just to help you understand what actually is happening as you're aging and what's actually changing. Okay, so it's not just like, oh, I'm just getting older. It's actually because of all these things changing in your body, like I said, right? But the inflammation part is actually something I speak a lot about how if you're eating and the way you're eating is not supporting reducing inflammation, your body's natural drop is forcing more endotoxins back into the body. So that's why the way you eat is really important to reduce that inflammation marker, right? So what do you want to do about this? So in regards to handling higher inflammation markers and all of the stuff that I talked about, like, you have poor digestion, you have poor GLP, YYP signaling, there's a number of things that you can do. So with your short chain fatty acids is how your body's gut ferments and digests fiber. So short chain fatty acids is really important to help regulate your bile pools, your enzymatic activity. Okay, so this is why having really good fibers and variety of fibers in your diet is super important, because it's going to help regulate that changing bile activity and all of that. So you having more short chain fatty acid production means more fiber. You need to couple the right things together. Like I said, the right macronutrients, proteins, fibers. You want to ensure that you have more polyphenols and antioxidants. So antioxidants are things that help prevent the oxidative stress in your body. So polyphenols actually modulate the beta glucuronidase activity. So again, beta glucuronidase activity, too much of that will produce more estrogen back into the system. So this beta glucuronidase activity, you want to modulate that with good polyphenols, antioxidants, things like your berries, your olive oils, having really good antioxidant activity to help it. Okay. And as well with strength training, when you strength train, you actually modulate that beta glucuronidase activity because of what's happening when you actually work out and lowering visceral fat. Okay. So there's a lot of things you can work with when your estrogen starts to drop and causes this type of decrease. Okay. So how many of you, like, because this first point about estrogen and the estrogen drop crosstalk with your gut microbiome is probably the most important part of understanding as a woman. If you don't know how to handle that, it's going to really affect a lot of your hormone signals. Now, let's move away from the estrogen side of things and let's talk about just aging as itself, okay? So this can apply to men and women, right? Not just ones with estrogen. Is your aging will naturally lower the diversity of microbiome in your gut. You're going to have lower diversity of the microbiomes, like the thousands and thousands that you have. What this means is as you age, men or women, you are going to have fewer short chain fatty acids produce. And these short chain fatty acids are so crucial for the health of your gut, okay? And there's going to be more pathobionts. These are kind of like bacteria in your body that can start off as good, but slowly over time, if they overpopulate, they're like the ones who are the neighbors throwing garbage on the streets, okay? So as you get older, not only does your diversity lower in your gut system, but you have fewer short chain fatty acids produced, so fewer good neighbors, if you want to say, and then you have more bad neighbors in your gut system. And if you cannot clear out some of these garbage and things that they're throwing or bad bacteria, this is where you're going to see more inflammation, more poor gut motility. So just by the fact of aging, anybody, men or women, you may find that this is why slowly you are going to see weight gain, poor digestion, and eventually onset of diseases if that's not controlled. Okay. And so that's number two. So one is your estrogen microbiome talking to each other changes. Number two, your aging pattern changes how much diversity is in the microbiome. And then number three is visceral fat. Okay. So as you age, perimenopause, menopause, postmenopause, with postmenopause having the highest incidence of visceral fat. This is really crucial because with visceral fat, that fat sits closer to your organs, okay? They're not the regular type of fat. They sit closer to your organs. Now, there is a correlation between your visceral fat to the bad bacteria, which are gram-negative proteobacteria. So this type of bacteria, if it is proliferated, usually connected with high visceral fat. What it does is that it actually, if it proliferates, because visceral fat's connected to this proliferation, it will actually release LPS, which is actually the parts of the wall of this bacteria. When parts of this wall of this bacteria is released into your gut, it will cause potential leaks in your gut, which you might have heard of, leaky gut syndrome. So the LPS coming from, sort of the proliferation of the proteobacteria, the bad bacteria, will potentially cause more of this leak into your bloodstream through the gut. And then this will alert your system of high inflammation. So how many of you have belly fat on here? Tell me. If you have belly fat, put belly fat below. Put belly fat below. And also, your type of belly fat does matter. Today's live is not about that. But the way your belly fat sits does actually change and affect something. But if you have belly fat, put belly fat below. How your belly fat sits, the way it is protruding, the way is it soft, is it hard, upper, lower, does indicate some things, but not on today's live will I break that down. If you have belly fat, it means you have more proteobacteria, that bad bacteria that can leak through your gut and then cause inflammation. So this is why I say if you struggle with belly fat, almost by default, you are going to have inflammation in your system. It is kind of hand in hand. And the belly fat excretes inflammatory markers into your system as well. Like the cells itself in the belly fat area excretes more of that, right? So with the more inflammation that we talk about, the higher inflammation in your body is going to cause more insulin resistance and higher risk of metabolic issues like prediabetes and diabetes, right? So one of the key focuses is that we need to reduce that belly fat as much as you can to try to help the system stabilize. So in order to do that, you have to stabilize. So why am I saying this? The gut system. Okay, so that's why I'm bringing this up, is learning to stabilize what's happening in your gut, the balance of your gut, the what you eat is really important. And so one of the things I would say, like if you are listening and if you're not, in one of my programs, I would say like controlling inflammation is going to be crucial. As you age, your inflammation rises with so many of these things. Learning to control inflammation is part of it. So like if you can eat in a way that does not cause more inflammation to build, more of the bad bacteria to build through, you have a better chance of helping your gut, helping to control that potential belly fat to come down. So if you're listening and you're like, well, I think I eat anti-inflammatory, or I feel like you say, I think I eat healthy, I avoid inflammation markers, but you still have a belly, my recommendation for you is to get your food fully looked at, because likely there's inflammation coming through your food that you're not aware of. So if you want to learn more about anti-inflammatory markers, the way to control inflammation in your system, put inflammation below. Again, we have a number of different resources. We have so many things on gut health, inflammation, that type of thing. So put inflammation below if you want to learn more and understand how to control that. Okay. So we're still on the topic of, how does your microbiome change with age? So you have, like I said, estrogen drop changes the microbiome talk with beta glucuronidase activity. If you missed that, go back and watch it. Secondly, your microbiome changes with aging. Naturally, with aging, your biodiversity drops, your short chain fatty acids drop, and your probiomes, the bad neighbors I talked about, increases. So just with aging, that changes. Number 3, with aging, visceral fat changes in your body, and visceral fat increases because of bad bacteria coming into play and inflammation circulating in your body. There is one more thing that you want to consider, is that as you age, your microbiome changes also because your bile acids and your gut hormones change. So again, like I said, with all the things above, your bile acids shift due to different hormones. The enzyme activities decrease in your stomach just with aging and different foods that you eat. Also, an interesting thing that you want to consider is this, is you can cultivate your gut microbiome. So if you eat a certain way and you love processed foods, or you have a certain thing you love, like some of people I've seen who love their diet cokes or other things, you will cultivate a certain microbiome in your system. And what happens is if you don't eat the proper macro combinations and proper foods, you will create a altered gut microbiome situation in your body, and it can be mostly reversed, but it can become to a point where you've eaten so bad that it could potentially not be able to be reversed, in the sense of it cannot produce those good bacteria anymore. So this is why we need to be a little bit more conscious of what you're eating, and be as proactive as possible. Your gut hormones, your gut microbiome is determined by what you eat in the years of 40s, 50s, and 60s. Usually you can repopulate by the way you eat and repattern microbiome gut activity. But in certain instances, like, when you hit metabolic issues of diabetes and the organs stop functioning and certain things, then they can obviously stop that microbiome production. We don't want to hit that. If we hit things like that where you're not able to change it, we're reaching situations of major diseases, right? So this is kind of why I say, like, to think about it this way, okay? You need to control the types of food that enter your body, the types of combinations of foods that enter your body. You want to ensure inflammation is reduced as much as possible, and you want to ensure that the hormones in your gut is controlled as stable as possible, so that the good bacteria, the best way, I mean, it's really complicated, but like the good bacteria can stay in there as much as possible. Okay. So let's dive into a little bit of what starts to happening at every decade. So in your 40s, you are in perimenopause, right? You're sort of like starting into that range. So during this era, I guess, your estrogen is fluctuating, and because the estrogen is a little bit unstable, your GI transit in the gut brain signaling is altered. So the gut doesn't move as smoothly. So you may find yourself sometimes more bloated, sometimes things don't seem to empty as well. Anybody have trouble going to the bathroom here? Gut motility, constipation, not being able to go to the bathroom. Anybody here? So this can happen at any age, of course, and it's never comfortable. In fact, we've coached, I know Shoni has coached also in FFF program, lots of people who have trouble going to the bathroom, okay? So the GI transit starts to slow down. So in your 40s, you want to make sure that you get lots and lots of different fibers and variety. And you want to, yes, like make sure that you really support the fiber protein coupling that I talked about as much as possible to make sure that transit happens properly. Okay. So it should happen, in at all ages, but you might notice in your 40s is where it starts to be like, how come I cannot go as easily, right? So that's 40s. And then in your 50s, you have early post-menopause. Sort of at this age, some already in menopause, some are getting into that phase. So at this phase, you have lower and steadier estrogen. So your estrogen is already declining, but it's a little bit steadier. It's not moving all over the place. When this happens, the visceral fat actually will start to come on. If you're in your 50s, do you notice that your belly fat starts to come on a little bit more? This is actually quite common. I hear it a lot in the 50-year-olds that tell me I see a lot more belly fat coming on. So it's because of the lowered estrogen and the visceral fat coming on more steadily at 50s is you're going to have more likely your endotoxin load starts to go up. Your endotoxin load, as I said above, is the estrogen recycle too much back into your system. I said this, a few lives ago. When the old estrogen gets recycled, estrogen metabolites gets recycled into your system, the endotoxins produce more into your bloodstream. The endotoxin load for you at any age, but when it starts in your 50s, is really affected by your sleep, your cortisol control, and what you eat. If you don't learn to control your cortisol, your endotoxin loads go up exponentially. In your 40s, you're less likely to face that at a high level. In your 50s, you're coming into more of this because of what's happening with the lowered estrogen. So why you want to be extremely careful about watching your sleep. You want to be extremely careful about how you control cortisol. And I find in your 50s, a lot of women are still really stressed. They're still working full time. They're still taking care of kids. There's so much going on that their stress cortisol level, high levels of this, all of these, the sleep quality, all of this type of stuff really creates a situation where if you don't control it, you are affecting endotoxin loads in your body. Now, coming back to what I said about what you can do, it still connects to what I said earlier, is you have to look to increase proper fibers and short chain fatty acids, which comes from fermenting fibers, but as well as increasing fermentable fibers, fermented foods, potential probiotics, things like that. But fermentable foods as well as fibers can really help with prioritization of the short chain fatty acids. So there's 40s, there's 50s, and then there's 60s, which is late post-menopause. So, or after, usually menopause, and people are already experiencing menopause, okay? So in the 60s, inflammaging happens. And I'm going to talk a little bit about what inflammaging is, okay? Inflammaging is low-grade chronic inflammation that naturally increases as we age. It's not like the short bursts of inflammation you have when you get a cut or you're fighting off a cold. Inflammaging, like aging, is like a slow smoldering fire. It's like a fire that like sits in the background and like it's like burning in the background, okay? And if inflammaging is there consistently, and depends on how much it is, it will really affect your joints, your muscles, your skin, and even your brain, okay? Inflammaging is no joke. It is the reason why most people as they age will get eventually sick, yeah? And most of you may not know, my dad is sick with cancer. But his situation he had an autoimmune disease a number of years ago that he had to take medication. And I'm going to talk about medication in a bit that really alters your gut microbiome. So if your inflammation cannot be controlled, the high chance of inflammation becoming a disease, altering your gut biome, is super high. And so this is what I'm talking about. Inflammaging will affect your gut microbiome because it lowers short chain fatty acids, okay? So let's talk about short chain fatty acids. This is in your 60s. It's not that in your 40s and 50s you don't have to be cautious of it. It just becomes more prominent in your 60s. Your short chain fatty acids, the gut microbiome, they ferment fiber and they make butyrate, acetate, and propionate. These three compounds. Short chain fatty acids reduce inflammation in your body and feed your gut lining. This is why having short chain fatty acids is super important, okay? Because it actually reduces your inflammation in your body. The problem is, going back to what I said initially about estrogen drop causing an alteration of your gut microbiome, your estrogen dropping, lower estrogen, and with age, your microbiome loses its gut microdiversity, short chain fatty acids drop, and so the diversity in your gut is lowering, plus there's inflammaging in your body. So there's like a double whammy. I don't know if that makes sense, because in your gut, everything is lower diversity, and your body is having higher inflammation there. So you're kind of in a vicious cycle of like, everything is going to cause inflammation. Your body is not able to get rid of inflammation. This is why that the way you eat is super important, because if you're not conscious of what enters your body, your gut system already has less microbiome, less ability to handle a lot of the inflammation. So if you give it more inflammatory markers, you eat more poorly, and you don't eat, for example, enough fiber, for example, then fiber that can control the inflammaging process is muted. So they kind of like are happening at both ends in your body. And that is why I say, like, again, make sure you're super conscious of what you eat in your body. You got to make sure the type of coupling that you have of foods. So one thing I always say is, like, don't just grab an apple. Now people will be like, what? I thought apple's healthy. And this is the type of thing, is like, I'm trying to help you just have a concept. It's not just one thing or this thing. It's like you have to have a combination to the way you eat if you want to optimize the response of your gut microbiome and the short chain fatty acid production. Although apple has some fiber, of course, as well, but the short chain fatty acids, as well as like what happens when it is taken in. So when the food enters, coming back to GYP and GLP and YYP, these hormones, they get excreted better when the combination is in place. This is why all my clients, when I talk about you must combine your macros a certain way, you have to eat in a certain way, not just one here. I'm hungry, I'm going to eat this cookie. I'm hungry, I'm going to eat this fruit. I'm hungry, I'm going to eat this thing. It actually all matters to how your system is going to produce certain hormone signals. Okay. So if you want to understand, again, maybe macro combinations, you can put macro combinations below. But like I already indicated to you, yes, protein and fiber are two of the most important coupling, but the combination I talk about is because even if you are thinking about like things like fat, and where fat, steroid hormones come from fat, and also fats influence against certain hormone productions in your body. So it's really important you understand how to combine your macros. Okay, so as well, another thing that we want to look at is sarcopenia as you age. I'm in the 60s range, 60s, and how inflammaging is affecting your gut. And sarcopenia really speeds up at 60s. So sarcopenia really speeds up at 60s. Sarcopenia is age-related muscle loss, okay? So age-related muscle loss, it accelerates in your 60s. Your muscle loss is, comes from hormone decrease, a lot of time for people, inactivity, and low protein intake. Most women do not eat enough protein, and this is going to affect your microbiome even faster in the negative way. Okay, your protein intake is super important. So how does sarcopenia affect your gut microbiome? Why is losing muscle going to affect you as you age into your 60s? If you have less muscle or less movement, you're going to have slower gut transit, like I said. So things are not moving through the body. Things get stuck to the walls. Like, it's just not pretty, right? You don't want stuff like this to happen. Then you have more inflammation, more potential for leaky gut things to happen. If you have less muscle, you will have likely slower gut transit. Muscle in itself is anti-inflammatory. So it prevents inflammation. Okay, in itself, by me saying that, everyone on here should be like, I need to go build more muscle now, right? Why? Because the whole thing is, as you age, your inflammation is rising. And what did I just say? Muscle is anti-inflammatory. This is why I say to everybody, maybe not scientifically the right term, but muscle is kind of your anti-aging antidote, okay? It is the key. It prevents inflammation in the body. If you can build more muscle, do it, right? So why? So with muscle contractions, when you lift, you will release myokines, which are anti-inflammatory signals. So it happens within the muscle contraction, okay? When you contract your muscle, you release more and anti-inflammatory signals. And when you lose those signals, or you move less, or you don't lift as much, your anti-inflammatory buffer, it actually buffers your gut. Your gut lining is stronger if you have more muscle. I know, crazy, right? It'll be stronger if you have more muscle, but with less muscle, your gut lining becomes more vulnerable to bad bacteria. So this is why you want to make sure, okay, I am building those muscle, and I understand how to build muscle and not just go to the gym to go to the gym. There's a difference between her doing just movements versus actually building muscle. We want to build your muscle fibers, not just movement. Movement is key though, don't get me wrong, for joint. If you move, even if you don't build a lot of muscle, it's great for your joint and it's great for your heart. So there's benefits to that. But if you want to actually build muscle, then you need to have specific muscle building protocols. You have to have right protein protocols, and you want to ensure there is really good gut microbiome for nutrient absorption. Okay, if you're listening to this and you want to learn more about specifically muscle building protocols, I want you to put muscle building protocols, or my shorthand is MTP, menopausal training protocol. Okay, remember this. There is a difference between moving your body and building muscle. I have met lots of people who move all day long. They work at their jobs all day long. They move all day long. Doesn't mean they have more muscle. Movement and muscle building are not the same. Movement is still good. Movement still gives you joint mobility and helps your heart, but does not mean you have more muscle. Muscle building requires a specific process and specific technique and specific nutritional protocol to build muscle. And my point here is muscle is anti-inflammatory. So women or men, because men get diseases, like my dad has cancer, you will have inflammatory things come up if you don't control inflammation in your body. And muscle is one of the antidotes. So we must build muscle. And with sarcopenia, one of the things with lower muscle mass is associated with less butyrate producing bacteria in people's stool. Like they did this study, okay? Butyrate is a short chain fatty acids, okay? So with less butyrate production, that means fuel for the muscle mitochondria. There's less fuel for the mitochondria of your cells, and that means when there's not as much mitochondria for your cells, you're more likely to have more inflammation. So why do I bring this in is sarcopenia. If you are aging, like into your 60s, and you're losing muscle mass, you have to be super diligent about the short chain fatty acids. What did I say? Fiber. Eat your fiber, because you are going to have less and less of the short chain fatty acids, which means that you will have less inflammation control. And with the less butyrate that I just said, it means the mitochondrial activity of your body is less. We want more. So if you're in your 60s, we want to make sure that that is boosted as much as you can. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. So that's number three for the sarcopenia. And then one more thing I said earlier is protein intake matters, right? Like about muscle building and all of that and sarcopenia. So a lot of people hear this and they go, okay, I need to eat more protein, which is good. But did you know that, listen carefully, if you eat too much protein without fiber, you are going to actually shift your gut towards proteolytic inflammation or fermentation. So too much protein without the right coupling of nutrition can actually produce ammonia and some of these other inflammatory molecules like P-cresol, these types of molecules. This further imbalances the gut. So this is why I say to people, it's not just about eating more protein. It's not just like, I want more protein. I want more protein shake. I want more this of this. It's the protein with the right fiber intake, with the right combination of food. Okay, I'm repeating myself, but hopefully that makes sense, because then you hear people taking all sorts of protein, and I see this really often, but not eating their fibers, and if you do your combination improperly, you can skew the gut imbalance. You can skew the fermentation improperly in your gut bacteria. So just coming back to it, the point is, make sure you have the right macro combo, and particularly the fiber intake to couple with a lot of your nutritional uptake to create the best balance, the short chain fatty acids, and to, just have the best hormonal response in your gut system. Okay. So how many of you admit and you're like, oh yeah, I got to make sure I am getting that fiber in. If you know you need more fiber, put fiber below. I feel like this is a lot of people. And you actually need quite a lot of fiber. It's more than you think, okay? A lot of women, typically the average is they usually get about 15 to 20 grams of fiber, and you need way more than that. You need up to 30 grams or more. Men sometimes need more, up towards the 40 grams or more, depending on age and activity level, but most people don't get enough. So if you're listening to this and you say, hey, I need more fiber, I didn't know it was so important, put fiber below, okay? Put fiber below so that you can identify to yourself, because it's actually like so common. Women eat tons of, they like, I'm healthy and I eat protein and I eat this, but they don't really think about that specific, how important the short chain fatty acids are to their body, okay? Let's talk about some of the practical levers. Now, I've given you a lot of suggestions already, but let's talk about what you can do, okay? And if this is like, if you're learning something, like I said, or it's helping you, again, hit the love button, or, send it to your friend to watch as I'm live, because once this, I realize this with Instagram, once I close out this live, the entire link disappears until we repost it. So it's totally a different link. So please hit the share button, share it to your stories right now so others can see it and other people can learn it, because we all understand, you guys know my dad has cancer and stage 4 cancer right now. You don't want your loved ones to have diseases. You want them to stay away from inflammation as much as possible. You want to prevent cancer. You want to prevent Crohn's disease. You want to prevent gut microbiome diseases, leaky gut syndrome. All of this comes from the problems of not taking care of our gut, right? So if you believe this can help someone, please share this. Please help other people, because I believe inflammation and gut control are two of the biggest things you can actually prevent diseases in your body, right? If you believe that, say amen. Amen to that, right? So your practical levers and things that we can do. So like I said, you should have fermented foods in your body, like tempeh, again, sauerkraut, miso. These things are good. Like I say, if you make them, I prefer that. sometimes when you buy stuff, it can be kind of problematic. I have a lot to say about bought things, but if you know how to make it, I know a lot of people can make their own sauerkraut, or or supplement with a really good probiotic, a good reputable probiotic, then it can really help you with the proper bacterial strain you want in your fermentation or probiotics, as much diversity as possible. Okay, this is one of the things you want in your system. Remember, you only have 25,000 genes. I mean, that's still a lot, but your microbiomes have 3 million genes. You want 3 million genes to dominate. Okay, you want 3 million genes to dominate, so we need as many microbiome diversity as we can. So that fermented foods or probiotics, because I really don't like the taste of meat myself. I don't like sauerkraut taste at all. I don't like it. I take probiotics. I believe in good probiotics. And you have to make sure there's large diversity. You have to make sure that the technology behind the probiotic is crucial. The probiotic has to last through your stomach acids to get to the colon. It's called Stay Alive technology. There are different kinds of technology. Just ensure the one you have is actually good so that the microbiomes can stay alive to get to your colon. Okay, so fermented foods. Okay, so that's the first thing you can make sure. Second thing is you need to have lots of diversity of plants and lots of different fibers, as many as you can get. In the studies, it says you should have actually over 30 in a week. Okay, and there's 30 in a week of different types of fibers and plants and everything. Now, obviously, can become a little bit difficult if you're time crunched, but there are ways to get that in. And again, that can be another discussion we have, but having lots of plant diversity. Number 3 is making sure the coupling of protein and fiber is in place. Like I said, so macro combinations is in place. Number 4, make sure you have polyphenols and antioxidants that really support your oxidation process. Colorful plants, herbs, those types of things, teas, those are really important. Polyphenols are extremely important. You want, so that's number 4. Number 5, you want to make sure that the medication, or if there's any medication you take, you're super careful, okay? There is PPI, things that lower kind of your gut acid for heartburns, and kind of NSAIDs, sort of like Advil and things like that. They can really alter your gut microbiome. So, and people who take metformin, who have diabetes or pre-diabetes, these things all can alter your gut microbiome. So your medication, if you are taking any medication, for the medication, this is something that I want you to be super careful, okay? Some of you are on blood pressure medication. Some of you are on high cholesterol medication. Some of you are on certain things. I want you to be careful, okay? There's a list of medication I have of what its impact is on your gut microbiome. And sometimes you need it to help your health. But in the long run, that will really alter your gut microbiome. Is anybody here on cholesterol, blood pressure pills, pre-diabetic things, or anybody on things like that? Or are you taking Advil when you have certain pain or different things like that? You put it below, because this is something that you want to be a little bit cautious of. Long-term medication will have its impact and is going to cause a lot of continuous damage in your body. Okay, so just think before getting a medication. Think, do I need the medication? Or can I actually change the situation in my body through actual lifestyle changes, right? If you are pre-diabetic, a lot of times through lifestyle changes, you can reverse that without needing to get on medication or to greatly reduce that. Okay, and that is quite common. Most of the time in my programs, people come off blood pressure pills, pre-diabetic pills. Metformin is even if it's not fully reduced, 2/3 reduced in their bodies. It's huge. So think about this. And one thing I'll say is that, like, Again, my dad had a massive inflammatory thing years ago, and he had to go on permanent medication. That permanent medication has altered a lot of things in his body. This is why be super careful about medication if you don't have to, right? Sometimes you have to, I get that. Okay, so there's that. And number 6 is probiotics. Well, I said that at the beginning when I was talking about fermented foods, but specifically this point is about probiotics. So, but there's certain ones that you might want more of depending on like your body. But, you know, without getting into all the specifics, is you want to use probiotics as an extra. The first line of defense is always going to be proper food, healthy food. So probiotics, you want to make sure, again, you want to make sure it has good strains, it has a diverse strain, it has the ability to last through specific things, but use it, again, not as the solution, use it as an extra on top of the way you eat, okay? So those are some of the more practical things that you can think of. Now, let's talk a little bit about gut-brain axis, okay? This is another massive area. Like, honestly, you know, each area can be a massive area of study that I can't get into. I was trying to make sure I can sort through the information for you to like make sure it's understandable. But gut-brain axis in itself can be a whole textbook, okay? But your gut and your brain talk to each other all the time, right? So your vagus nerve is where they connect through, and you know, your microbes, you know, your like serotonin producing like the feel good hormones, your brain can, like, based on the food you eat, it can tell it to, you know, go down a good route where it produces like serotonin. The tryptophan from certain foods like turkey and eggs and things like that can help produce good serotonin. But if it doesn't get the right signal, that can go down a bad route. It's called Kinnurenin phase, and it will cause stress, brain fog, you know, low mood. And so the thing is, you want to make sure that you have good, again, food quality, and again, the short chain fatty acids, and getting foods with the amino acid of tryptophan in there is also really important. And that's why, again, understanding your food quality is important, because your gut-brain axis and how you feel, how the signals, hormones, can make you feel really good or make you feel really bad. So gut-brain axis affect mood, sleep, and stress. So it goes both ways, okay? If you are very stressed, you will alter your gut microbiome, right? So we need to control stress to maintain the better gut microbiome. But if your gut microbiome is off as well, then you can also affect the stress level in your body. So it's like a vicious cycle, right? So we want to make sure that this gut-brain axis stays as healthy as possible with the right nutrition, the right amino acids, with the tryptophan, with the short chain fatty acids, with having low inflammation foods that allow for a better production there, right? Yeah, so gut-brain axis is super important. And like I said, your gut-brain axis is, if you feel low, or if your energy, or you find yourself very stressed a lot, just ask yourself, am I eating the right foods right now? Okay, because your food will affect how stressed you feel. And so that's like a lot of time people actually are not as stressed as they really think. It's actually the food they're eating, right? So just to help you. Now let's dive over to gut skin axis, okay? Because again, I'm not diving into gut brain axis. I'm just giving you a little thing to think about. Gut skin axis, okay? So as you age, your estrogen drop is going to cause your skin to naturally go thinner, drier, and less elastic. How many of you notice your skin feeling drier as you age? Yes? I smile because me too. Although I have really nice skin, but I compare it to I was like, wait, like before it was like not as dry, So you will notice it will get thinner, drier, and less elastic, okay? If your gut is inflamed from dysbiosis, poor diet, or stress, it will worsen this natural decline. So already estrogen drops, your skin is not going to be as nice. Who has crepey skin? As a lot of my clients tell me, like, oh, my skin is getting so crepey, and like, I don't like the look on my arm, I don't like the look, and so the crepey skin is part of that estrogen dropping. But this is what I'm about to say: if your gut is inflamed from dysbiosis, from poor diet, from stress, it sends out more inflammatory markers that sparks your skin problems and makes the skin worse. It makes you to have breakouts, rashes, dullness, and inflammation will produce, what's this, in your skin. People are like, oh, cellulite, dimpling. Yeah. I have to tell you, from coaching so many women, I've watched their skin change. Beate, one of our old coaches, Oshone, if you remember her legs, do you remember that picture of her legs where it had more dimpling? And as soon as we really worked on her inflammation and brought that inflammation down and tightened that in, the dimpling smoothed out, right? So naturally your skin is thinner. Naturally your skin is going to have less elasticity, but you can control how much inflammation goes into your system from your gut, from what you have here, can affect how nice your skin looks, how smooth it looks. Okay, kind of coming back to the gut skin axis is no different of advice I've given. So I want you to think, I need to eat fiber. Same point. I need to make sure there's fermented foods. You need to ensure there's polyphenols, and you need to make sure inflammation is highly controlled. Inflammation, I can't tell you, it's like my secret love language in the sense of like controlling inflammation. And so again, if you're listening and you're like, I don't know if I control inflammation enough, I don't know, my skin's crepey, or I have belly fat, or I have trouble building muscle. A lot of it is that lack of control of inflammation in your system. This is why, I keep coming back to the same point, right? So if you want to learn how to control inflammation, put inflammation below. So just because you're aging, it doesn't mean that you have to, have crepey skin, or you have to have all of this kind of skin problems. Of course, we're all going to age. There's kind of that natural aging process. However, it's like how you eat, the foods you eat, how you control inflammation will slow it down. And the goal is to slow it down, right? We all, in the end, we're all honestly gonna die. I'm not trying to be morbid here. I am a little bit morbid here. But we're all gonna die. We're all gonna age, but it's to slow it down. So how can you slow down inflammation? How can you slow down the aging process, the inflammaging process, right? Yeah, so in terms of gut brain and gut skin axis, and there's actually a gut muscle axis, but I don't think I have it on here. I was getting a lot of different things that with every research element, but your gut health greatly impacts the way you can build muscle. So there's gut brain axis, there's gut skin axis, and gut muscle axis. And so just really taking care of your gut is very crucial, okay? So along with all the things to do, so making sure you have your protein that we talked about, high amounts of protein. Okay, I would aim higher, and if you're older, I'm going to say aim for higher with a caveat, okay? Obviously, if you have certain conditions, you need to be careful or get tested, and you want to ensure there's some coaching or advice behind that. Just because, for example, Phyllis is 75. Phyllis is not on here, but she has a certain testing in her hormone tests that came back that we have to be careful about her protein amounts. So it's not, I don't want to just straight say like, go more, but just I want you to understand in general, women as they age don't do well with low protein. You need more protein. If you want more specific coaching on amount of protein, how much, then that, like I said, you could put macros below if you have not put that. Aim for higher protein and good quality protein, okay? I already said you want to have close to 30 different types of plants or vegetables in your week, with probably like 5 to 14 different kinds of fermentable foods. Again, this is like things that you can think of how to do the protocols. Some of your protocols, how you eat throughout the day, can help you or not, because that's a lot of food you got to get in. And I'm not trying to intimidate you, but yeah, you need a lot of fermented food and a lot of plants. And training wise, you need to make sure that you have for sure resistance training, not just walking, not just movement, resistance training at least 3 to 4 times per week. And making sure that the training supports your hormones. Just like I said, your training needs to not raise your cortisol. It needs to support the functions of your microbiome. Your microbiome actually changes, like I said, with lifting. So you want to ensure you have good resistance training for this. So again, that's MTP protocol. If you want to have the menopausal training protocol, this is where understanding the differences between, again, you need cardio, you do need strength training, you need mobility work, you need HIIT training, you need different kinds of training to produce different effects in your body. So again, if you want to have better menopausal training protocol, put MTP. And then the last thing, I already said it, is be careful about the medications you take. Make sure you check with your clinician. Do you have to keep taking that medication? Could you back off certain medication? Because that all ultimately shapes your microbiome, right? So those are all the specific strategies that I want you to consider. Oh, and there's one more that I wanted to talk about, is your micronutrients. So in terms of your macronutrients, you have your protein, your carbs, your fat, knowing how to combine, and the coupling of those macronutrients is crucial to how your microbiome functions. Okay, so I mentioned this, but outside of macronutrients, you have micronutrients, and micronutrients are like your vitamins, your minerals, your things that help your body. Okay, food first, supplement second. Okay, you will never supplement out a bad diet. Can I say that again? You will never supplement out a bad diet, which I see a lot. People buy all sorts of supplements and still go to McDonald's. People buy all sorts of supplements and still eat that pizza. It's okay. Once in a while, pizza is okay. I'm not saying, people are like, I can't eat my pizza. But like, it's like, people buy protein shakes and buy these crazy things. And yet I look at their food and I'm like, oh my goodness, you cannot out supplement a bad diet. Please say that. Please put it below if you agree with me. Put it below. You cannot out supplement a bad diet. So I'm talking about supplementation, but I want you to know this is in addition to very good eating. Okay. So in terms of like the supplementation, like I said, you can have extra fiber supplements if it helps you. There's certain types that will help you more than others. I'm not a big fan of wheat-based supplements for fiber. There's quite a few of those. I'm not a big fan of that. I'm not going to get into why today, but there are different types of fiber supplements that are better than others. If you feel you need to go that route, I mentioned omega-3s are extremely important for your skin, for your mood, for hormone production. So you can have that. Having, a lot of my clients, I work with them on magnesium, but there's different types of magnesiums. There's actually 8 different types of magnesium, but understanding types of magnesium for your body is super crucial. Getting your vitamin D's in, is also very crucial. Vitamin D is very important for gut health and for immune system health. And there's a bunch of things you can consider depending on who you are. Some of my clients I've asked to see what you take as supplements, like Phyllis sent me her supplement stack. Again, if you want to learn about menopausal supplement stack, you could put menopausal supplement stack or just MSS. Let's put MSS. MSS is menopausal supplement stack.
right? So there's a certain kind of protocol you could take to help your body improve on its well-roundedness. Again, you cannot out-eat a bad diet. So I definitely am not a fan of just take supplements and that's it. You have to really learn how to eat well first, okay? So MSS is super important, okay? So an MSS, I'm also going to say this, is there's a lot of specifics about, obviously if you have a holistic nutritionist, like Kimiko sees her holistic nutritionist and all this type of stuff is great. She already will have direction on this, but if you don't, having somebody to talk to is very crucial, because how you take supplements also matters. How your supplements, when you take it, when is it most effective, and how it's coupled is also important. Some are not as important, of course. Some are very important how you couple it, because the same as macronutrients, the way you couple them is more important than others. So again, if you want to learn about menopausal supplement stack or MSS, you can put MSS below. So that was the last thing I wanted to say. So in closing, what I want you to remember is that your gut microbiome is one of the most important organs of your body, okay? One of the most important organs of your body. Learning to take care of the second brain is going to last you a lifetime. And it's more than just, I eat healthy. Okay, I get that all the time as a health coach. I eat healthy, right? But it's like, what do you mean by you eat healthy? What is specifically are you indicating? Is it that you say you eat salad and I eat whole foods, so I think I'm healthy? The thing why I challenge that language is because it gives you an out without thinking about the details. You're like, I eat organic, so I'm healthy. I eat greens, so I'm healthy. I'm like, okay, well, first of all, are you actually combining your macronutrients properly together? Secondly, is your timing properly? How you time your nutrients through the day? What about the quality of your protein and the types of nutrients like protein? You need more tryptophan in there, and types of leucine. Leucine is super important for your protein. The things I'm saying is because when people say I eat really healthy, but yet they have belly fat, they have hormonal imbalance, they have weight stalls, they have problems with their body or gaining muscle and things like that, I challenge it, because then I say you're missing the specifics I'm talking about, right? So if you're learning a lot and you want to learn more about gut health, you can put gut health below. But learning how to protect your gut is super important and will be your number one way to prevent diseases in your own body. So hopefully this helped. Again, if this helped you, please like it. And now you can't share it, because if you share it and I end it, the whole link disappears. So I would just ask that you later repost it. You can like and share the replay to other people. And hopefully you can help people learn more how to take care of their own health. Sending you guys all lots of love.
Thanks for tuning in to the Fierce and Fit Mentor podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to hit the follow button on Spotify, subscribe on YouTube, or wherever you're listening so you never miss an episode. If something in this episode resonated with you, please leave a review or share it with a friend who'd love it too. Your support means the world and helps us reach more amazing women like you. Until next time, stay fierce, stay fit, and let's keep building your most powerful self.